Hi, I'm John Radoff, CEO of Disruptor Beam. We are making Star Trek timelines, and I never listen to the G&T show.
G&T show is intended for mature audiences. Parental discussion is advice. Live long and prosper, bitches.
Shall we just start right off the bat with a Las Vegas update?
Are we still talking Vegas, right?
We are.
Talking about Vegas.
Yes. You're coming to Vegas, right? Star Trek Las Vegas may take place every August, but on this show...
This is where we hang out the rest of the year.
Exactly.
The crew has been fatigued now from so many months in space, and they need to take a break. The landing party has been down to check out the terrain while the crew gets ready to play. They say there's only plant life living on this lovely rock, but a rodent up here's wearing a vest.
Welcome to another G&T Supplemental Log. Joel on True, bitches. It's Gettysburg 7. To my left, your right, there she is in her Sailor Moon outfit. Not quite sure why she's wearing that. Terry.
Hello, everyone.
And in the distance, he's monitoring mission control back home. It's Ceridium. Kapla! Thank you, Mike. Terry, why don't you introduce our guest this week?
This week we're very pleased to have with us Mr. John Radoff, the CEO of Star Trek Timelines, which everybody knows is this new game that kind of snuck up and bit us in the butt. So tell us, John, where did you come from?
Sure. Well, the company is Disruptor Beam, so I'm CEO of Disruptor Beam. Star Trek Timelines is our second game. So the first game we made was called Game of Thrones Ascent. It's on mobile devices, tablets, web browsers, and that's a story-driven role-playing game set in the world of Game of Thrones. And through that, we learned a lot about what makes a good story and how you bring stories to life in a multiplayer game setting, and we wanted to do that with what we believe is an even bigger universe, which is Star Trek. So last year, we reached an agreement with CBS to be able to use Star Trek within our gameplay, and we started working on Star Trek Timelines.
Well, that's wonderful. And so a lot of our listeners are Star Trek Online players right now and would probably be very interested in expanding their gaming lives and pulling more Star Trek into it. Tell us what makes you different from Star Trek Online.
Yeah, well, it's a very different game. Let me start with the story, and then I can go into maybe how you play it and how it's a bit different. Well, the setting within Star Trek Timelines is that there's a crisis within the space-time continuum, and what that means is that all the different characters and episodes and storylines from all the different series of Star Trek are getting mashed up. So you can go all the way back to the original series, you can go to The Next Generation, Enterprise, a lot of the movies. So characters that you've really learned to love across all these different episodes, they could be there together. So you could have Kirk and Picard on the same crew, for example.
Oh, wow.
You do all these things that were never really possible in the TV show because you couldn't really bring all these different actors together again across all the different seasons, but you'll be able to do that within Star Trek Timelines. So the gameplay of Star Trek Timelines is about engaging with this story of the space-time continuum crisis, putting your crew together, recruiting crew, finding characters who can join your crew across all these different episodes, developing your crew, developing your starship over time, and then ending up in conflict situations. And in this game, conflict doesn't necessarily mean combat. Sometimes that'll be the case. You do need to, fire photon torpedoes and use your phasers sometimes. But the thing that we really believe was Gene Roddenberry's vision for Star Trek is that, combat is often, that's the breakdown of things. So we want science, we want technology, we want diplomacy to really play a big role within the game as well. So when you engage in a conflict, you don't necessarily have to break out the phasers. You could try diplomacy, you could try to have a science-based solution to a problem.
Well, that'll be huge news for a lot of gamers who are out there who are kind of tired of the combat, or the pew factor of gaming right now, especially with Star Trek. How would a person interface or deal with diplomacy within the game?
So I mean, that's part of something we're still working on, and we'll reveal more about how exactly that happens. But the core of the combat system, or the conflict system as we call it, is more of a role-playing game process. So you make individual moves, you decide how you're going to react in different situations, you make dialogue decisions.
Okay.
So you choose what your characters would like to say in a given setting, and you have different things at your disposal. So your science officers, your command officers, your security personnel, they're all going to have different kinds of things that they could do in a different situation. So a lot of the strategy of this game will be about developing your crew and then figuring out how you want to assemble away teams together that have complementary skill sets and can solve different kinds of problems.
Okay.
But possibly you'll specialize in things as well. So if you want to be someone who's going to really always try to win through your prowess with science, for example, you might put together away teams that are really good at that.
Well, and that was a question I had. Now, from the beginning, do you start at a certain level and then build up through, like, from small ships to bigger, or do you start at a certain area? How does that work?
So everything is still a little bit in flux because we haven't released the game yet, and it won't be out until next year. But conceptually, you'll start within something roughly along the lines of the next generation time frame in terms of where you begin, but then you can kind of interact with these storylines from across all of the different eras and episodes and whatnot. Where you start is you're going to start as a commander of a starship.
Okay.
So you don't start as an ensign or a petty officer. You're going to be in a role about command from day one of playing this game, and you as a commander are going to make decisions about what your crew is going to look like, who you need on your crew.
Like we saw Archer doing an Enterprise when he put the Enterprise crew together.
Yeah, it's about the strategy of how you put the crew together, and then in this game, of course, you're going to be always interacting with things from different timelines and different stories, so you'll have an opportunity to bring new people into your crew as well.
So tell me, Q, is he involved in this at all?
Q will be a part of it, absolutely, of course. You can't say crisis in the space-time continuum without putting Q in there somewhere.
That's awesome. Now we have a couple of questions about the story, because as we told you and we talked a little bit about, how is your team getting together to discuss the creation of who came up with the idea, the process that you guys went through with writing, how this all evolves? Because a lot of our listeners are writers and want to know your creative process and how that has worked within the team environment.
Well, I get creative processes are all kind of mysterious, I guess. I can tell you kind of how we put our team together and how some of the talent came together on this. Yeah, so, I mean, going back to the beginning of the idea, which was over a year ago now, we always had this idea, which is there's so many characters that people love from Star Trek, and we've, surveyed people, and, the people who you even forget about from the episodes. There are characters there's some audience who that's their favorite character and everything. So we really wanted to be able to embrace that and have the idea that there's dozens, hundreds of characters that people love across those episodes and have them there so that you could interact with them through this game. And that's something that hasn't been done with Star Trek yet. There are other kind of character-centered games in other parts of video gaming and strategy gaming and stuff where you kind of collect a lot of characters over time. Mm-hmm. And we'll have that aspect in this as well the first time with Star Trek. So that was kind of the premise of the idea. CBS loved it. They thought it was a great way to bring to life all this content and lore and character history from across all of Star Trek, yet bring it into a game. But time and alternate realities and things like that, that's also always been a theme of Star Trek. So we didn't really have to invent that. We wanted something that would be plausible within the universe of Star Trek. Yeah. So whereas time travel and alternate universes and mirror universes and stuff would not fit, a lot of other science fiction universes, Star Trek, it works just perfectly because that's always been part of it. Every season, I think, no season went by where that wasn't relevant in some way, and it even became dominant themes in Enterprise.
Right. Well, there's no doubt that those themes are totally organic to the IP. It's easy for you to be able to work with. Now, do you have a staff writer, or is this?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and how many? Just the one?
So Disruptor Beam is about a 30-person company.
Okay.
And we have a writing team. So the core of our writing team previously worked on Game of Thrones Ascent, and before that worked on a game called Star Wars The Old Republic.
Oh, yeah.
So very well-known BioWare game. Another person on our team worked on Dragon Age, another game from that. So our core team of writers have a background in writing
for outside IPs or for established IPs?
Not just established IP, but games with rich narrative in it and a lot of dialogue. So,
that's right.
And that's what we knew would be important to us. We want to have a lot of dialogue, a lot of narrative, a lot of storytelling going on. And so our writers really just have a background in that. Game of Thrones Ascent, I lost track of how many words it is now, hundreds of thousands of words of dialogue within that game, and we certainly aspire to have a lot of rich content within Star Trek Timelines as well.
Very, very cool. Now, how are people going to be able to access this game?
So any web browser and more or less any mobile device. So iOS, so iPhone, iPads, Android tablets, Android phones, and web browsers. So
is your community,
virtually everybody.
Great. And is your community already established online?
It's very early right now. In fact, we have something we're putting together called the Bridge Crew program, and what we're doing is we're inviting people who are Star Trek fans and would love to just kind of be participants with us in crafting what this game's going to be all about, to come and join that, because the Bridge Crew program is really where our opportunity to listen to people and throw ideas out there and hear how people react, but also that'll be the first people that'll get access to early releases of the game and to give us feedback. So the community is still small today, but it's growing, and we would love more people to participate.
Now, is this going to be a pay-to-play or a free-to-play?
It's free-to-play, so the way the game will be paid for is through individual item purchases and things like that.
Okay.
So, for example, Jean-Luc Picard is a character you could have on your crew in this game. But there's lots of versions of Jean-Luc Picard because there's lots of timelines and stuff. So if you want Old Man Vintner Picard on your crew from the end of the series, well, that's another version of him that maybe you'd pay for.
Okay.
So that, to give you access to a lot of the custom content and the cool stuff.
Right.
That's how you'll pay for the game. But anyone could play it for free.
That's great.
Now, you're a big Star Trek fan?
Oh yeah, I grew up.
What's your favorite series?
Oh, that's such a dangerous question to ask because people have many opinions.
No,
but
our audience it's very varied, but
so for me, the Next Generation, and because I think it's what I grew up with. So, I mean, my father had the original series on the TV practically every night, even before the Next Generation. But the Next Generation came out when I was a teenager, and I watched it religiously. I loved Data. So there were two types of technology I liked. I either wanted to make Data someday, or I wanted to make a holodeck someday. And I'm kind of making the holodeck because that's what games are, really.
Yeah.
So I've gotten to kind of realize one of those, and Star Trek was really one of the inspirations that got me thinking about, what kind of technologies could we create? What could you really do with technology? So, but I watched TNG, but then, I've watched them all, DS9, Voyager, Enterprise. But TNG, just because of the time it was in my life, I think is sort of the one that's most sentimental for me.
And how about your favorite character? See, because mine is Garrett from Deep Space Nine. Not some. I met two other people. But Riker, she's in love with her.
For me, I think Data was always my favorite character because I was so fascinated by him and how he kind of developed from this very kind of rigid kind of automaton in the early, and he sort of was able to learn how to interact with humans better over time, even though he didn't really develop emotions other than certain episodes.
Yeah, really. And in the big scheme of things, I think most of us would agree with you that Data is definitely a character that you get to see a lot of growth from over the course of his Star Trek life, so to speak.
I just remember having all these conversations with my friends when I was in high school about so if there was a Data and there was the ability to have this artificial being who could nevertheless think and reason like a human being. Could they have rights? Would they be like a member of? Could they be an officer of? Or could they play a role in society? Like, I just remember having all those conversations. So, Data, I think, was my favorite character, not just for Brent Spiner's portrayal of the character, which was awesome, and the character growth, but just sort of the ethical and philosophical questions raised by the character were really
great
fascinating.
Fodder for some wonderful ethical and moral discussions in the show. There's no doubt about it. Now, if we're going to go through some of our what we call our James Lipton questions.
James Lipton from inside the actor's studio?
No.
Okay. Well, he has a set group of really crazy questions. We've altered them for our interviewees, and we've already asked you two of them, but here's the thing. If you were given the opportunity by CBS...
And we've asked this to the authors.
We've asked this to all the authors, and anybody who's written a script or anything like that. If you were given the opportunity by CBS to get the green light to go ahead and kill a major Star Trek character... Canon character, and it would stick. It wouldn't come back. Who would you kill off?
Oh my goodness.
That's pretty much the answer we get at first.
They kind of did kill Wesley Crusher eventually, sort of, by transforming him.
Sort of.
That's too easy though, right? Like no one I was kind of the same age as him watching the show, and he was kind of annoying.
It wasn't Wesley that annoyed me, it was the writers that made Wesley annoying.
The actor's great. It's not a commentary on
he's annoyed by Wesley, so...
That is true.
He's awesome. The character is just kind of annoying. Kill off a character. You're asking me to like kill someone's dreams. So I guess from a writing standpoint, the question is, you don't kill a character because you don't like them. You don't kill a character because they necessarily deserve to die. You kill them because it's going to make the plot really interesting.
Sounds just like David Mack.
Don't you think? I'm thinking we're getting a good guy here. So
yeah. So it would have to be someone with massive repercussions to the show. Like, I would go. And it's a risks that weren't taken by science fiction shows at that time, and now there's a lot more killing off of characters in shows. It's become more expected.
Like The Walking Dead.
It would have been shocking, say, to kill your favorite character, Riker, at the time. I think that something like that could have been really interesting to, what is the vacuum caused by a beloved character now being there? What does it mean for Picard no longer to have that sounding board for his decisions? How does someone else come in and play that role? So, maybe Riker. I don't think I'd do it to Picard himself, just because he kind of carried the whole show, and that would have been a different kind of vacuum that wouldn't have been as good from a plot standpoint.
I like the answer. I think it's great.
Because as you were saying that, I'm thinking, okay, they could have brought Shelby back and, brought her back. Well, she was already...
I'm not disagreeing. I think it would have been an interesting choice. I think that's the first time we've gotten the right answer.
Beverly Crusher could have been an interesting one to kill off too, just because of the connection to her son, the romantic connection to Picard.
Dare to dream.
Yeah.
She's not my favorite character.
We're Pulaski fans.
Okay.
That's just us.
Well,
all right, go ahead.
If you could be any race other than human from Star Trek, what would it be?
I don't think I want to be a Vulcan. I guess I'd be a Klingon.
I think you might be the first interview that we've done where it's Klingon. Usually the fans, it's Klingon, but we've gotten a lot of Bajoran or Andorian, things. But Klingon.
Yeah, but Bajorans are too close to humans, really, when you get down to it. Klingons live large and have a lot of emotion, and they don't do anything in a little way. That would be me.
There's mine right there.
Okay.
And what's the next one?
Ship name.
Yeah. What's the name of you're in command of a vessel? What's the name of the vessel?
Wow.
We had a great answer from one of the authors. He's from England.
Yep.
The Ark Royal.
Yeah. He flies the Ark Royal in Star Trek.
Well, my company is called Disruptor Beam, so maybe the Disruptor.
Oh.
That does, yeah.
I like that one. I do like that one.
That sounds
That
like an
sounds
old
just as
destroyer.
badass as Defiance or
Yeah,
something.
it sounds like an old destroyer from World War II, or a submarine, the USS Disruptor.
What would you fly? Would you fly a cruiser, an escort? What would it be? Or a little shuttle?
No, I like
Type 5 shuttle. Right?
even though I like the idea that sort of the militarization of space is the minimized aspect of Star Trek, when they do explore it, it was pretty interesting. So that, like, the idea of the Defiant class ships was pretty interesting. So I think the Disruptor would probably be maybe the next generation beyond the Defiant when we put the weapons on there that we stole from the Romulans to incorporate disruptor beams.
I like to say stole from the greatest empire in the galaxy. Our audience knows that I'm a Romulan.
Now, are you a reader?
Yeah.
Yeah? What books and whose books do you tend to pick up first, especially when they come out?
You talk about
Any
for the whole...
Any genre.
Well, I'm a huge George R. R. Martin fan. I mean, as you can tell, because we created Game of Thrones was our first game, but I read the books long before the show came out on HBO, which kind of popularized it. In fact, got to know George, before that, and pitched him on the idea of creating a game. In that case, it was about the diplomacy and the characters. What I like about Game of Thrones as a narrative is it broke so far away from the typical fantasy story of the team of good guys goes up to kill the big bad.
Right.
Yeah, that's the Lord of the Lord of the Rings archetype, which has just been ripped off a million times now. Yeah, what I liked about
I love Kroll.
So I like narratives where there's a lot of ambiguity in moral outlooks, and I love it when you don't know what's going to happen, but then in hindsight, if you look at it, you're like, oh, that totally made sense that happened. So, and George R. R. Martin's a master of that, I think.
You know what show does that really well right now is Arrow.
Yeah.
You know he's not going to die, but everybody else is open. And the way that they're doing things and how he went from killing people and now he refuses to kill because he was called on the carpet by his team. And I like that you're right, the ambiguity and the...
Don't tell me too much because I've just come to Arrow. I came to it a little bit later than others, but I'm like it.
I only came into it at the beginning of season 2.
Yeah, so I'm just finishing the first season.
I got the first season on Blu-ray. So, yeah.
Love you. Sorry, Kipley Brown was just sneaking in behind us all.
Kipley can sneak in on me anytime.
If you want to talk about other stuff outside of fantasy or Star Trek, like in Doctor Who, I think every episode Moffat writes is amazing.
What's your favorite TV show?
My favorite TV show, you mean other than Star Trek? I think the reboot of Battlestar Galactica was fantastic. That's probably my favorite science fiction series that's been on TV, not including Star Trek. Of course, Game of Thrones. I mean, I'm watching that all the time.
You're a Walking Dead fan at all?
I am a Walking Dead fan too. Yeah, so I've read the comics and I've watched the show.
And I love the fact they're two different universes.
Well, they're not really two different universes. What's cool about Walking Dead is, it's a global apocalypse. So the ability to tell stories kind of in a consistent way, yet in different geographies and stuff. Yeah, it's the same characters kind of going on their slightly different story arc between the comics. But if
you read the comics, you're not necessarily going to know what happens in the TV show.
That's right.
Because they've introduced new people have lasted
some
longer.
Some characters die and some don't, either one.
Which is great because it keeps us guessing.
Yep.
Well, kind of getting back to Star Trek timelines, what is it that you would really like new and potential players to know the most about Trek or Star Trek timelines?
So the main thing to know is that it's a game in which you're going to have a range of different decisions you can make. So it's not going to be a game about just combat and combat mastery. So it's not a twitch game either. It's not going to be about you flying your starship around and firing photon torpedoes at everyone. It's not about how well you can aim. It's about how well you can think about problems. So it's more of a thinking person's game, which I think is the essence of Star Trek as a universe. It's a thinking person's universe. It's not about shoot from the hip all the time. Combat is something that can happen in this game, but it's one of several options that also include diplomacy and talking things out and science and development and developing your crew over time. So if you're a person who would like that thinking person's game approach to the Star Trek universe, it'll be something where you could come into the game and you could potentially stick with this game for years and years, because you'll be able to occupy a universe with millions of other players who kind of share that passion for the universe and that same kind of interest in storytelling.
Very cool. Now, how can people find you? Where is your website? Where can they join the community?
Yeah.
And when might you be thinking about, now, not to put any pressure, because I know developers, and it's always soon trademark. And when are you hoping that you guys might be able to crack beta?
So next year is what is our schedule. More specific than that, I couldn't give you at this point.
Right.
The first people who will get access to that will be people who join the Bridge Crew program.
Okay.
And the way you can do that is to go to our website, disruptorbeam.com.
Great.
disruptorbeam.com. Go to that. Go to the Star Trek section. It's clearly marked. There's a Bridge Crew program you can join.
Great.
Just give us your email, and then you'll be on the list. So when we're ready to have you test things, you can try it out.
You're making a list.
Well, thank you so much, Don. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Really
thank you for joining us, and we wish you the best of luck. It's a tough industry that you're in, and it's very competitive, and we hope the very best, because we need more Trek in our lives. So
thanks.
Congrats.
We're up to the challenge.
As you move forward, we're always open if you want to come back on and
let us know how we can help.
Things.
Okay.
Definitely.
Great.
All right. Thank you so much.
Pleasure. Take care.
Okay.
That's Terry Lynn.
This is Gettysburg 7, and we're saying Jolan True, bitches.
Music for the G&T show is provided by Warp 11, Grethor, 5-Year Mission, and Andrew Allen's Smooth Federation.
G&T Show is a Busy Little Beaver production.
Some dude walks out, proceeds to explain what it's all about. I sure want to leave. I think you'd agree, but we cannot leave till we find out what it's all about. It's all make-believe, nothing is permanent down here. It's just an amusement park. Bones is now alive, so it's okay for him to say, I'm a doctor, not a shish kebab. Apparently it's okay if we trust an unknown race who can read